The attack on Salman Rushdie also brings up the whole idea of violence in our society, but also particularly the desensitivity to violence in the US. Where, for example, in that lecture room, where, for example, was the physical barrier that would screen people coming in to the lecture? Where was the bodyguard? There was no bodyguard on stage at all. How could someone with a knife get into a lecture? Maybe the US is just so used to violence that these things happen. But more importantly, we need to think about the US-UK security handover. We need to think about how British subjects are protected in America. You know, we have to think about a man who has been under routine protection for years and is still on a hit list. The fault, of course, lies with the fatwa issued by Ayatollah Khomeini, this mad cleric who issued a fatwa about a book that he had never read. And out of the various British politicians who have spoken, only Rishi Sunak has made this an issue. In fact, I think he's the first and only politician to call out this problem and to demand sanctions, further sanctions on Iran, particularly as the media in Iran have gone forward to praise the assassin. That's Khadi Mata, 24-year-old. Khadi Mata. So in fact, he is so young that he was not born when the Satanic Verses was published. It's absurd. But the fault lies not only with the US. It lies not only with the fatwa. As far as the US is concerned, it demonstrates absolutely, I think, the useless obsession with carrying guns. What guns protected Salman Rushdie, for example, from attack? What's the point of having these guns and having the right to bear arms for our own protection if somebody can approach a well-known, a famous author at a public lecture and knife him not once but twice? But more importantly, the UK must share some responsibility. We must ask why so many UK ministers of government are hovering in silence. Yes, there's been a few mild, the barest hint of support in carefully rehearsed tweets. So there are multiple failings. The special relationship between the UK and the US absolutely failed Salman Rushdie. And that's the failure of the Foreign Office. That's Liz Truss, isn't it? It's the failure of the Home Office. That's Priti Patel. And I think it's also the failure of the Ministry of Culture, Media and Sport, Digital Culture, Media and Sport. That's Nadine Dorries. I've been talking about these three for a long time. Why have they not seized the airwaves to talk about the implications of this, to explain why Salman Rushdie didn't receive the protection that he should have had? Why wasn't there a bodyguard on hand, at least at the door? There was nobody even anywhere near the stage to protect him. And what about the basic international courtesy to liaise and secure British subjects abroad, particularly those who are high profile? The balance needs to be shouldered and shared. And instead we have the silence of the sheep. Liz Truss, Nadine Dorries, Priti Patel. All too happy to bleat, as we know, about Boris, but they keep their heads down when it comes to Salman Rushdie. You know, what steps were taken to stop this happening? And what steps will be taken to stop this happening in the future? What would our government do to stop an attack, let's say, on Prince Harry? Or now we hear J.K. Rowling. It's about clarity and competence. Because we're told today by the judge who heard the initial assessment that this was a targeted, unprovoked, pre-planned attack. And yet our ministers, the ministers who are supposed to be looking after us and presumably also monitoring what we're doing abroad, they're all silent. And the woman who is supposed to be dedicated to the arts is silent. And we know it doesn't take much to get Nadine Dorries on the telly. You know, we've heard from some of Salman Rushdie's fellow authors like Khalid Hosseini, Hanif Qureshi, and yet we haven't heard from Nadine Dorries. Why not? Why not? Isn't this her job? I am disheartened. I'm disheartened and I'm dismayed. And I'm really quite angry because I think, you know, there but for the grace of God, if we are not protected, if this relationship between the UK and the US is so flimsy, you know, what is our government doing? What is the government doing for us? And at this moment, maybe we know at this moment they're too self-obsessed. So thank God for Rishi Sunak, who at least is addressing this issue in some way. Late, but he's addressing it. And let's be honest, it was never his responsibility, even when he was in office.